I'm Chris Roselli.
And I'm Al Dowling. Welcome to Western Window, the show made for you by students at Western Washington University.
In today's Western Window, we'll find out more about earthquakes in the Northwest. We'll chat with a man who is working hard to help people who struggle with depression, and we'll watch as the bell rings on a brand new trading floor right here at Western.
We'll visit with renowned environmental sculptor George Trakas. We'll watch what happens when electric bikes hit the bricks, and we'll take a moment to enjoy springtime on campus. So stay with us as we explore our world through Western Window.
The Pacific Northwest is one of the few regions in the world capable of generating a magnitude 9 earthquake. So it's important that we understand our local seismic hazard. I had a chance to sit down with Dr. Jackie Caplan-Auerbach, Western Associate Professor of Geophysics and an earthquake expert, to find out what it means to live safely in earthquake territory. I am here with Associate Professor of Geology here at Western, Jackie Caplan-Auerbach. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my absolute pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Mother Nature's been good. I'm sitting here sweating in my blazer on the lawn of Old Main here on Western's campus. And you're an expert in Mother Nature, I understand.
Parts of it.
All right.
Just parts of it. You know, I don't do biology, I don't know that aspect, but what I do is, working with the physical aspects of it, with the geology.
So tell us a little bit about your expertise in geology.
So I do study mostly natural hazards. I'm a seismologist by training, so I study earthquakes. Most of the earthquakes I study, though, are earthquakes that take place in volcanic environments. So I'm kind of a hazards junkie, so I study earthquakes and volcanoes and also landslides, because they're earthquakes that take place in association with landslides and ice avalanches, and I study underwater volcanoes. I mean, it really is kind of this conglomeration of hazards that I study. And again, that's great here because we've got all that. We've got earthquakes, we've got volcanoes, and we've got undersea volcanoes, and we've got, sadly, terrible landslides. We have them all.
So the big one, I think ever since I was in maybe junior high, we've been talking about this big one.
You've been warned about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but I'm still
here.
And
it doesn't come, does it?
No, and I'm still here. I keep rolling out of bed. Wondering, okay, is it going to happen?
When is it going to happen?
We talk about this big one, and actually I think there was an article recently in the New Yorker.
In the New Yorker,
right? Yeah,
that's right.
Talked about the Pacific Northwest and the big one. And we do. I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that we've got such geologic activity here with all of the Cascade Mountains. We've got Baker, people living in Baker, we're snowboarding on a volcano.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that article awakened a lot of people to it, and awakened them into sort of a nightmare. I mean, people were really frightened by that article. And there are good and bad aspects of that. I think when people recognize that we live in a hazardous area, the goal is to actually to cause people to recognize that without scaring them into inactivity.
Okay.
You want to encourage people that we live in a hazardous area, but that these hazards can be mitigated, and that to tell them how they can take ownership of that mitigation, to talk about what governmental agencies and the scientific community are doing to encourage that. The sort of Puget Sound area or the Pacific Northwest has sort of several different hazards of seismic hazards. We're at a plate boundary where one tectonic plate called the Juan de Fuca plate dives under another, and that diving process is not smooth. That diving process is sticky, and it's hung up, it's rock, and it's dragging on itself, so it gets stuck and it gets stuck, and then it lurches, and that lurch is the earthquake. And that can happen in several environments. So we've got these deep ones, and we've got more shallow ones, and then we've got ones that take place in this kind of mushed together crumply plate on top, the North American plate. The big one that we are concerned with here, well, we're concerned about all of these for various reasons, but the sort of shallow one that has to do with that plate motion is the one that could potentially really create a monstrous earthquake, and by that I mean something over magnitude 9, the type of thing that we saw hit Japan in 2011. And that is also associated, it's shallower. It likely would be associated with a large tsunami, so there are secondary hazards with that we're concerned with. But from your question about, so we've been warned about this. When's it going to happen? I mean, I grew up in San Francisco. Same thing. I've been waiting. 89 was
Sure.
good. We rocked
California's
a lot then.
Still attached to the
California's
United States.
still
Hasn't
attached.
floated out to sea yet,
Exactly. We used to think that, you know, we would build up a certain amount of what we call strain. That's deformation. That's the plate trying to move and then gets to a point where it slips. And it turns out it doesn't happen like that. Sometimes we get these things every couple hundred years. Sometimes it takes 800, 900.
Sure.
So when we average that and we say, looks like every, 250 to 300 years we get one of these, well, it could be 900, or it could be on the shorter end.
So I mentioned earlier that there may not be a better place on Earth to study geology than Bellingham. So tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing with our students who are getting this opportunity.
So I will actually credit the whole geology department in this, because I do think it's a great place to come. We have a lot of field-oriented classes. So we have some classes that are taught exclusively in the field. So there's something, for example, called structural geology, where you look at faults and folds and the mechanics of rocks. And we teach it in a traditional classroom sense, where students look at a lot of rocks and they do a ton of field trips.
Sure.
But ultimately, it's classroom plus field trip. And then we have a version that is all outside. We have a capstone class that's entirely taught in the field. In fact, students just came back from that a couple weeks ago, where they were in Montana and Idaho and mapping rocks and camping every night for 3 weeks. So we have extraordinary opportunity here, and a lot of our students not only engage in it in the classroom, but do research projects. We've had quite a few students wind up presenting at national conferences on the work that they do. So it's a lovely place to go outside and say, oh, that's what I learned about in class.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's true. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Oh, it's my absolute
so
pleasure.
Nice to see you.
It's certainly a pleasure.
So,
Yeah, always nice to chat with another geologist.
I know, it's so fun.
George Trakas is an environmental sculptor widely acclaimed for projects around the world, and Western is home to one of his works. His installations are unique. They emphasize the natural resources of the local area. He recycles local materials, incorporating them into the finished piece, and he always strives to maintain a strong sense of community where he builds his amazing works of art.
Some people think, often I've built things in situations like this, and people say, when are you going to put the art on it? Because of these platforms and everything else. And that happens a lot, both in a humorous way. Everyone knows I'm an artist and doing it, but some people joke around and they ask me about that. So the work pretty much is not necessarily contrary, but shows another kind of perspective on contemporary art, not for people to look at and focus on the work itself as a shape or whatever, but actually as a tool to look at their own environment. This was a very special situation when I came here, and that Western allowed me to work with this extraordinary space, with this view, to be part of this collection. Was a real adventure for me in the early part of my career. So it was, it's one of those early works where I was given carte blanche to work with a huge space. It wasn't a huge budget, but I knew I could handle it. The deck is basically a deck for students to come out of the music building, sit and enjoy the view. I mean, that's the base common denominator of the work. However, details in the work relative to music, when I conceived of it and when I started building it, the music had an influence on me. The decks, as you can see, are very much like a keyboard, and there are 4 of them, so that there's a kind of treble clef and a bass clef. The work allows the spectator to have an experience that's unusual relative to decks and walkways. And it asks them to, the mind of the spectator says, do you think I can take this step across that gap? And the body says, no problem. And people feel like gathering here. And the dialogue that happens here at the same time, the view that they can look at, gets them away from the mundane, from the daily stuff. And that, to me, in a sense, is what the function of art. People go to museums to look at new stuff, to look at invention and colors and figures, be them nude or whatever. This is how this functions. It's instead of standing in front of it or walking around it, you actually get on it and feel your body on it. There were issues of security, balance. It kind of respects the intelligence of the viewer, and that there are no railings in the front here. When you sit there coming up the walkway, there are no railings that set down at the base. So it kind of says, this is not a normal walkway here. This is not a normal deck. It's not just a bench, on a concrete footing. And so it kind of sensitizes and puts the viewer kind of in touch with themselves and the materials of the work that they're on and the environment. And it's that kind of binary thing back and forth. So it very much is a kind of choreographic experience where the work kind of asks you to be careful, but also have a little bit of an adventure. There's a lot of thinking that goes into my creation when I'm doing it that may not necessarily be understood or even felt when it's there literally. That's what I love doing, Access to inaccessible areas. So it really becomes an adventure, People said, well, I've known that space for all my life and never been there. Now I can go there. The main impulse is to take full advantage of a space that I can acquire, get permission to build on, and do something for its local population. Not for the art world, not for the critics in Seattle or in some big city. I really work for the community where I'm building. But no, I can't, an artist doesn't retire.
Kevin Hines talks openly about his struggle with mental health. His goals are to create a space where community members can discuss the realities of suicide and to inspire people to find hope and seek help for their own mental struggles. Here at Western, Building Resilience and Voicing Empathy, or BRAVE, is a campus-wide program that provides resources for people struggling with depression, provides support for their friends and family, and aims to break down stigmas surrounding depression, offering a path towards resilience.
It's been almost 80 years since the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. From 1937 to now, it has been estimated that 1,700 people have jumped from the bridge, making it the second most used suicide location in the world. The 70-meter drop kills 98% of jumpers. About 26 people have survived the drop. September of the year 2000, Kevin Hines attempted to end his life at the age of 19. In the 4 seconds between letting go of the rail and hitting the water, he gained a new perspective on life.
Living with severe mental illness or brain disease is the hardest thing I do on a daily basis. Prior to my attempt on the Golden Gate Bridge, me going over that rail, I was hearing voices in my head telling me I had to die, telling me I was a burden to everyone around me, telling me that I was useless, worthless and less than, that I had no purpose. None of that was true. My brain was trying to kill me. I was trying to stay alive. And that's, if you can imagine a pain deriving from here that doesn't just cause headaches and migraines, but causes you to see things that don't exist to anyone but you, hear things that don't exist to anyone but you, believe that you have no other option but to die. I wasn't trying to hurt my family. I wasn't trying to hurt my friends. I was trying to make the pain in my brain stop. Recognizing today that pain that has caused my brain is because of chemistry, allows me to, every time I get that pain, choose life. And ask the people next to me for help. And that's what this is about. It's about reaching out to this audience and the people that show up today. It doesn't matter if there are 5 people in that audience or 500. The people that are in the audience were the ones that needed to be there, and I hope to reach them. And I can tell you that I will never attempt to take my own life again. Is the exact same thing that 19 Golden Gate Bridge jump survivors have also said. That I had people that cared about me and loved me, and I learned that I had to take responsibility for my mental illness, and I had to fight it tooth and nail.
Today, Kevin is using his second chance to make a difference, sharing his story to inspire hope and promoting resources that can mean the world for those in need.
I would say that if you're living with a brain disease or brain health condition of any kind, and you don't know what to do, there are local chapters of the National Alliance on Mental Illness that can help you and your family. There are suicide prevention organizations like Suicide Awareness Voices of Education, save.org, that can guide you to how to help yourself and heal. There's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. Press 1 for active duty military veterans or servicemen and women. All of these things can be tools to guide you to a better place.
Here at Western, Farah Green Palmer manages the university's suicide prevention program called BRAVE.
We call it BRAVE, which stands for Building Resilience and Voicing Empathy. And right now we're having our very first Depression and Seasonal Affective Disorder Screening Day called Beat the Blues. I think every school should have a suicide prevention program. And before I got here, I think Western was doing some things with prevention and wellness services, but kind of just, here or there. And then they had, anytime anybody has more than 1 or 2 deaths by suicide, they start to pay attention. And so several years ago, there were a few. Not sure about exact numbers, I wasn't here then, but that's why they wrote the grant. They felt like we need to make sure that we're showing everyone we take suicide prevention seriously, we take mental health seriously, we care about our students.
Both of us are peer counselors for the CPIT program, which is the Crisis Preventive Intervention Team. And what we do is we will reach out to people who have called or gotten in touch with us. They're in crisis, and it doesn't matter, we go to them. And we're peer counselors. Each of us go out with clinicians, and we sit down and have conversations and provide all the resources that they may need.
I guess what I want people to know is that they can recover, and that, it's not weakness. Actually, it takes a lot of courage to speak up and be vulnerable in front of people. And that doesn't mean you need to tell everyone. Just find a few people that you trust and people who know what they're talking about and can help you.
Bicycles are joyful, efficient transportation machines, especially the new electric assist cargo trike that arrived on campus in December. With an electric motor and a 400-watt battery, this is no ordinary trike. On campus as a part of the Sustainable Action Fund grant, student employees are delivering newspapers all across campus, uphill with a smile.
It feels like the hills are flat. It fills in sort of the gaps when your own riding doesn't have the power that you might need in that traffic situation. There's nothing that isn't positive about riding the bike, except you have to know about the gear, you have to have the gear, and you just have to get over some of those barriers. So we're trying to lower or remove barriers that people have to beginning.
The direct goal of our grant was to replace vehicle trips, and so the Publicity Center has done a really great job of doing just that. So they're using the trike now for those trips. And I think it's been successful. We trained some of the student staff over there last month to ride the trike around, and I just actually checked in with them over there today, and so far everything's going well, and the trike is really fun to ride. So
with this, I put out the New York Times on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and once a week on Mondays I put out the AS Review. It has helped a lot. We used to drive a truck around, and a truck is not nearly as maneuverable around campus. It has a lock actually on the back tire, so I don't even have to worry about finding a bike lock. I just can lock it up anywhere. So it's actually made my job a lot easier. It can hold I heard 200 pounds. For me, it's just like a lot of paper. But with the electric assist, it's just like super easy, no sweat. People always come up and ask me what I'm doing, like if I'm working or if that's just like my bike, which would be kind of funny.
This is the Butchers and Bicycles trike. As you might have noticed from this large whale-looking shape, it's got storage in the front, and actually that's the big feature about this thing that made it stand out to not just me, but the whole team. And it's got some nifty tech, and it can tilt, which means you can ride it sort of more like a normal bike while still having the stability of a front axle. And much like the Selexity, it has front suspension, so it can be applied. Got disc brakes front and back, so that means you got good stopping power, and these motors can give you a lot of push. So you definitely want to be able to slow it down. I also like that it's got suspension because it just means the bike can ride over bumps and stuff. And again, when you've got power coming through, you don't want the bike jumping around on bumps or anything like that. So you want to have lots of control over the bike. It's the right price for the right level of quality and fit and finish and power and usability and safety. So it won out over probably 15, 16 other bikes that we looked at, even in its price bracket. So that's why we have this one. It's nice and safe and usable.
We do have money for another bike and another 2 bikes, and we're deliberating on what kind we want to get, because we just really want to make sure that the bikes are top quality and they're not going to have any problems or anything like that. So there could potentially be 2 more bikes on campus, not sure, but definitely just the 3 for the first probably couple quarters.
Thanks to a generous donation from Saturna Capital, Western students can now get hands-on learning at the Saturna Sustainable Investing Lab in Parks Hall. Its real-time access to market data and automated analytical tools provides a learning environment like no other.
Today, if you were here not all that long ago, you would have found behind this wall an empty space, empty but for vending machines and a copy machine and a few tables where students worked. So the state has built out what we call the vanilla shell in the construction business, and everything else in there is a function of not only the gift from Saturna Capital, but beyond that, the gift of many others as well. So there's closing in on $30,000 of additional gifts beyond the contributions that have been made by Saturna Capital. One thing that's specifically gratifying for us in the College of Business and Economics with this gift is the fact that it so well connects with our business and sustainability degree. So we have a combined major with Huxley College of the Environment in Business and Sustainability. That program is in its 3rd year. We have 64 declarants in that major already, and we're very proud of that. And it clearly connects business and sustainability in a way that this lab does as well.
Well, I'm very happy to be here today and have this ceremony. It's exciting to open the finance lab. We've talked about it off and on for years, and I think practical skills-based education definitely is one of the most important things we can offer young people today. And that's completely selfish on my part because I want to hire them with that knowledge. But I just want to say thank you so much to everyone, and what a great idea and excellent job on the execution. The lab looks fabulous, and I'm sure that students are going to be clamoring to get in there and learn to use all of the different things that you have, and it's exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
We can all get our hands on this as we Don't get pinched. Okay, Jane, I can't see you. Forward a little bit. There we go. Good. Good. Hey.
We thought we'd leave you with this amazing reminder of one of the many reasons why we love it here at Western. Thanks for joining us.
And we'll see you next time as we explore our world at and around Western Washington University.
Western Window is proud to partner with the following student publications. Clipson Magazine is published twice each quarter and includes features, multimedia, and issues that affect lives across the greater Bellingham area. You can find it online at clipsonmagazine.com. The Western Front is the official newspaper of Western Washington University, published by the Student Publications Council and funded by your advertising dollars. The Western Front. Get it first, get it right at westernfrontonline.net. The Planet is Western Washington University's award-winning quarterly environmental publication and the only undergraduate environmental magazine in the United States. Explore The Planet online at planet.wwu.edu.